Yeah, it's a good practice.
All right, Paige, I gotta make this call. You ready? Paige, are you ready?
You're recording.
Okay. Seamus was asking about like hip swing with downs and stuff, and it's something I've noticed that I think we're waiting a little too long to try to implement it, and I think by the time we're starting to implement it, we're kind of in quote-unquote proofing stages of the downs. So if the dog isn't getting it, we're needing to correct them a lot, and it creates some confusion, and then the motivation is gone to get the hip swing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? So I wanted to kind of discuss that and just go over, that's something, what I've been doing with a lot of my dogs lately is in the teaching stages of down, where I'm just doing like leash pressure and food stuff, I get the hip swing out of the way in that stage with the dogs, right? And I found that that's been really, really beneficial for like the stability of things. So you were asking me with THRU in particular, how strict do you be about the position as far as enforcing it?
Right.
Excuse me. How's THRU's food drive?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and put your e-collar away for a minute. And what I want you to do is you're gonna go back to just like basically down stages with your leash pressure and food.
Okay.
Adding in your verbal command, obviously, but just enforcing it with the leash pressure if she doesn't do it.
Okay.
And I want you to try to get your hip swing, just enforcing it that way, and we'll see what we get.
Okay. Down.
So obviously if she pops up, you'll still say no, but you'll just use your leash pressure to help her back down. Yeah.
No. Down.
There we go. Perfect.
No.
And with this, since we're kind of teaching something new, just release right away after your reward for it. We're not looking for any stability or anything here.
Okay. Down. Good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Then once it gets smoother, that's when you'll add stability into it.
Down.
She's so funny when she does that.
Good. Good.
Awesome.
Okay. If it's something like that where it's like she, as I'm feeding, she's kind of starts to do that rise.
Just help her back down,
Okay.
you know.
Is it something like kind of take the food away in the meantime and then kind of
can,
down?
yeah.
And, okay.
Yeah, we'll see if she does it again.
Down.
The premise of this really is just like, even though we've taught the down, we're now teaching the hip swing, which is something totally new. So we wouldn't use big corrections for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's all about shaping the behavior first, then enforcing it later on.
So-
Yeah, just help her back down. And then get your hip swing again,
Should I give her that?
then
down
reward
command
again. You can, yeah. Yeah, if she breaks it, we would mark, obviously, and then
Okay.
you could repeat the command to get her back into it. Nice. And good timing with your mark. Notice she's going to flip over all the way, but because your mark is like really precisely timed the second to hip swing, it's getting her to stabilize there and not go the rest of the way. So that looks really good.
Good. Okay.
Awesome. So that looks great. So I want you guys to start working on teaching and stabilizing this just quicker in the program, especially if the dog has really good food drive. Before you ever implement e-collar and stuff like that, if the dog is motivated enough, you should have this step kind of solidified. And what you're gonna find is your downs are just gonna be so much more stable with the dogs because they're gonna have just a more clear, stable understanding of the position, you know?
Yeah.
So just teach that faster with the dogs and really start looking at, like, this dog has phenomenal food drive, you know what I mean? So this should be a pretty motivated dog by the, by the end of the program, obviously. Yeah. So, and it was cool to see at the beginning when she was kind of just a little unsure and, maybe trying to avoid the correction and this and that, but wasn't totally clear on what to do, how different her attitude was by the end of it, till like she was engaged, she was motivated, she was trying to figure out what it was that you wanted, And again, that'll have to be tightened up later. Like there were some times she was blowing you off and stuff, but we're teaching right now, you know what I mean? We're teaching something new.
She snaps back pretty quick too.
Yeah.
When she knows.
So that was great.
Yeah.
So I would do a couple sessions of that with her until that looks really, really good. And you should see in a couple sessions that should look rock solid. Quick little board and training thing.
Bridget, you're up.
You're up. What? Okay, so elaborate again. What was the issue again here? Too motivated, not stable enough?
So it is almost like too motivated, in which like the pursuit of like getting the reward is so exciting that he's breaking stability with the command. So I'm not sure if it's like my deliverance of the food or my timing, but a lot of guessing. So if we're working on downs and like I'm about to say down, he'll run over to the bed and try to guess of what I'm gonna ask of him, which I don't necessarily know if it's a bad thing.
What? Where do you see the biggest problem with it? Like, is there something we could do right now that would simulate this issue?
Just starting to work through commands.
All right, we'll pick a command. Let's see it. What have you been working on?
Bed stays, down stays, and then recall. So pretty much everything.
Like combining them, you mean?
Not combining at this stage, just like some sessions I get bed, next session I get downs, next session I get recalls.
Okay. All right, well, go ahead and start doing some stuff here and then let me know when you see the problem and we'll see what we can do to fix it.
Okay, comment. Down. Good. Or if he breaks the down, am I correct in saying no? It's the guess is always to go to the bed.
So that tells me, go ahead and put your e-collar away for a minute also. We're not gonna need that with this dog for this. So that tells me, so our dog is always gonna have a strongest behavior, one that they're most likely to offer when they're trying to get rewarded or avoid a correction, right? In his case, that just tells us it's bad, right? Which means that's probably what you need to work on the least. You know what I mean? So what I would start doing then at that point, if I'm seeing a lot of beds, is I would primarily work drills where the dog is gonna be close to me to start to combat that a little bit. And I'm not gonna do it with corrections. This dog is plenty freaking motivated enough, right? This is not a he's distracted by things and needs to be corrected problem, right? So let's do a bunch of downs now. We'll just kind of see what we get.
Good. And then I know the other day with Jerry, you had me kind of like hold it up for a second. Good. And then do that. Is that the process each time?
That is what I personally do anytime forever that I reward a down, right? Like indefinitely, regardless of the dog, regardless of if their hip is swung already, because anytime, if we get too comfortable with just zoop, 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 eventually they're gonna start meeting us halfway, right? So if we always make sure it's stability, boom, reward. Stability, boom, reward, right? You're never gonna run into a chance where they start getting sloppy with it, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So you're proactively solving that problem before it even starts. Yeah, he's just, bed is his best command. So yeah, just encourage him over to you. There you go.
Down. Good. I was just watching like another trainer's story last night, and she said like something along the lines of, if your dog is so hyped by food, don't use food because you don't want to rile them up. So just like,
That's, okay, you know, There are situations we don't want to create a ton of arousal for sure, but when I'm training a dog, I want them motivated and I want them eager. And a lot of times the people that say that don't know how to teach the dog to control themselves around the food. You know what I mean? They're too contingent on the punishment to create the stability, right? Where again, not that I'm a believer that positive only training works for everything or it's going to get you this miraculously well-trained dog, because there are outside distractions. But when it comes to a dog being motivated with you, if they're that motivated for food, there is no reason why you can't teach them to control that impulse for it. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, again, like some of the best trained sport dogs out there in different like competitions and stuff like that, most of their training and stability is done just through rewards. You know what I mean?
Good. Okay. Down.
That is essentially a lack of understanding of one of the quadrants, negative punishment, right? Negative punishment has been proved. You get into scientific studies and stuff like that. There's scientific studies out there that prove that for a very, very motivated dog, the withholding of reward can be more aversive on the dog than positive punishment, than an actual consequence happening. You know what I mean? So if you could harness that with these dogs like him, how jacked up he is right now, there's no reason why you can't get really incredible stability out of them.
I guess like my habit is when I'm going to deliver the
Sure.
reward, if the hips become like unswung, I take it away and I don't give correction, I just like take the food away, and I don't know if that in itself is becoming confusing because there is no, the correction is negative punishment instead of the e-collar, any correction of the e-collar.
It's fine. Yeah, because you figure, again, like if the hips are becoming unswung, right, because the dog is just excited to get the reward, right, that wouldn't need a correction, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just going to realize, well, until they get swung again, you're not going to get the reward.
Good.
So that's 100% fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Like all of these they could be used interchangeably, you know what I mean?
And then like the back and forth between hip swing left and right, is that fine?
Don't worry about that. Here's the thing. We encourage the hip swing with all these dogs, and if I'm going to give a reward, I'm going to make sure that their hips are swung in the down position, but it's never been something that's like an absolute must that we're going to correct for if the dog doesn't do it. You know what I mean? The expectation is just down, right? We do the hip swing just as a little extra stability when delivering rewards, to shape essentially what the expectation is. What's something that you think would get this dog really distracted?
It's hard to say. Because the food is like everything he wants, like.
Like quick movements, things like that? You think he's really antsy on those types of things?
Probably.
So let's work something like that to proof our down here. So pick a spot, put him into a down, and then I want you to do something that you think might get him to get up. And again, we're going to utilize negative punishment here in order to teach this and proof this behavior.
So something like to try to attempt to break.
Yeah, I mean, don't talk to him, obviously, but like quick movements, whatever you think might get him going, you know?
No.
Mark, go back to the spot.
Here. Down. No reward.
No reward, yeah. Not until he does it successfully.
No. Here. Down. No.
Close.
Down.
Just give a second.
No. Down.
There you go.
Good.
I want you to mark faster, though. You gotta mark the second he makes the mistake.
Down. Good. No. Down. Good. No.
Close. He's gonna get it in a minute.
Down.
Notice he's fixing himself now because he's starting to understand this isn't getting what I want. Mark with good.
Good.
And go back and reward. So again, reward always, or sorry, not reward, mark, or good marker always comes at the highest point of distraction, right? So in this case, the second we do that drill and he stabilizes, good. Mark right away from wherever you're at in the room, then go back and deliver your reward for it. Let's try this a couple times.
Okay. Down. Good.
Still make sure, remember, hand up, then reward. Just try to make that, like ingrain that as a pattern that you do with these downs. Mark.
Good.
There you go.
Now that we were able to do that.
Good.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Do the same thing, start on muzzle and pop it off, you know?
Yeah.
Just do that a couple times. Just pick nice, easy dogs for him, you know?
Okay.
He did really good the last time, but.
So then, you know, you might find that next session you go out and down is great and he's just glued to the down the whole time, right? So then you would work come commands, right? And kind of get him unlocking a little bit and you just kind of alternate back and forth. And here's the thing, right? The biggest thing that I want you guys, we kind of go back and, not back and forth, I should say. I emphasize certain things with you guys as I feel like you're kind of in a position where you're prepared to like apply them like really successfully to like your dogs and stuff. And one of the biggest things I want you guys looking at now is how much can you lean into the reward side of things with stuff and create the same stability and the same kind of energy and reliability and stuff with this stuff using a little bit less firm of corrections for stuff. Still use them where you need to, but really start asking yourself, like, do I absolutely need to give that correction in this moment? Or is there a more efficient way that I can get it done while maintaining the integrity of the dog, you know? I think that's a big part of this is you know, mastering the individual layers of communication that we have, you know, and leaning into certain ones depending on the dog that you have. So, but that was great.
Yeah.
Does that answer the questions or whatever you had about this dog?
Yeah. Yeah. It was just like in the beginning stages of his training, he'd be like jumping up to meet me for reward or finger chomping.
Sure.
So it was probably in the way that I'm delivering the food and the timing.
Yeah, some of it. And I mean, listen, like, technically with all that stuff, like, you could just use your rewards for it. But there are certain things that we do want to correct for. Like, for example, Millie, we did a clip in the vlog the other day. Like, it was one of my first sessions with her. And she was just, like, jumping all over me for the reward. So I showed how to use, like, negative punishment to discourage the jumping and reward the forepaws on the ground. But the problem was, like, we still need to stop the jumping, you know what I mean? Like the deliberate jumping on me. So I decided to give corrections for it. We inhibited the jumping. She kind of slowed down a little bit from it, was a little, you know, apprehensive and stuff. And now I've been kind of building her back up. And now the jumping is gone. You know what I mean? So like they still have their place, the corrections and stuff like that. But when it comes to stabilizing and teaching behaviors, right? That's where you could kind of lean more into that side of things. So, you know, if he was, you know, day 1 or day 2 just jumping all over you for the rewards and stuff, like, yes, that needs to be corrected right away, you know, because that's a problem that's independent from the training. You know, we have to stop the jumping. So, but yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
Come. Down. Good. Kids get so fucking excited. So excited.
That's how my kid would act.
Puppy! Look, Luca's like, what the fuck are they doing? You can see it in his face. Good. Okay. Luca, come. Good. Look at this. Okay. Luca, come. Good. Look at that attitude. Okay. Luca, come. Good. Okay. So all I'm doing right now is just, he's free, he's on a long line, just kind of waiting until I lose him. If I lose him, I'm practicing a come command, so there's no expectation in between of him healing or staying with me. Just looking to proof that command a little bit. And obviously, because our come command is our walking command, once they start getting in the zone of understanding it and, you know, and staying engaged with us, they wind up just kind of healing on their own like we're seeing with him now. Paige, quit messing with these dogs. Good. That dog kind of looks like Fizz too. Good job, Luca. Okay. Good. Come on. Trying to get him to, good. Up. Get him to balance all four paws on this ledge. Using leash pressure here. Come on. Good. Oh. Good. Come on. Good. 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 Okay. So this is case and point shaping with negative reinforcement, right? I could teach really precise positions by having a deep understanding of pressure and release, right? So negative reinforcement, again reiterating, is the removal of something to increase the likelihood of a behavior. So when I apply pressure, good. That release of pressure reinforces what it is I want, which is all four paws on this ledge. Okay, did you get the beginning when I was like doing it? Like all the fight and everything? So obviously, the skill with using negative reinforcement has to do with your understanding of precisely where the release is. But in addition to that, like right now, pressure's on, pressure's on, pressure's on. Good. But also the amount of pressure needed in order to do it, right? Okay, so the first couple times I needed quite a bit to get him motivated enough to start trying something else so that the release would be motivating. Now I'm able to use, good, just teeny bits to get him to do it. And then if he gets off, good. Okay. So these are skills that, frankly, every dog trainer should have a good understanding of. So again, applying pressure. Good. Releasing pressure when he does it. Okay. But as a dog trainer, we need to be taking all of our quadrants and all of the tools that we're using, whether it's just a flat collar, whether it's a prong collar, whatever it may be, and fine-tuning and perfecting our skills with that tool with miscellaneous things like this. This is not something that has a ton of real-world benefit to it, obviously, right? But what it does is it helps me sharpen my abilities as a trainer, and it helps sharpen, good, his understanding of how to escape and avoid pressure, which will ultimately build his confidence and allow him, okay, later on in his life to learn new things more efficiently because he understands that sensation. He's almost, good. He's almost starting to do it on his own. Okay, come on. Good. Obviously, ooh, close. Good. Okay. Good. Okay, and your understanding of these tools, obviously positive reinforcement, I could do this with just positive reinforcement, but it would take me a hell of a lot longer, right? So by implementing these other forms of reinforcement into our training process, what happens is we can expedite the learning process so much with dogs in a fairly non-confrontational way. Come on, bud. Let's go. So we'll do one more. Again, let's see if he does it on his own. Good. Come on. Good. Okay. Try one more. Good. There we go. Looks great. Good job. Okay. Look at that cool little impromptu thing. So what we're going to do next is we're going to start getting into the come command. Bennett, come. Good. Okay. Another concept we were talking about the other day we were filming was, you know, once you know the mechanics of your training and how to implement, say, positive punishment, which I implemented right there for non-compliance of that come command. Knowing exactly how fast to implement it is essential as well, right? Because in that case, it was very apparent from the second I gave that command that he was distracted, right? So in order to combat that distraction and get as much speed out of that come command as I can, I want to give it immediately after that command because I know he knows the command. He did a bunch of repetitions really smooth, but chose to blow me off in that moment, right? In other cases, if it wasn't as much of a blow off, Bennett, come. Good. And it was more of just him like, wait a minute, are you sure? What am I supposed to do? This, that, just confused by the environment. Okay, I would want to give him more time in order to work through that, or potentially more help.
Great. And then for English Springer Spaniels, I mean, you've probably trained a bunch of dogs. Are they like known to be aggressive dogs? Do you know by hand?
So not necessarily aggressive dogs, but Springer Spaniels notoriously kind of have a rap for what we call like Springer Rage, which is like just this kind of like weird, quirky, like aggressive displays that you'll see out of them periodically.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not uncommon that with that breed we've seen those types of issues before.
Okay, yeah. And like, I mean, I'm not like afraid of him by any means,
Sure.
but I've grown up with dogs, like with Berners growing up, and like they were aggressive towards other people, and like things didn't work out. So I just want to make sure I bite it in the butt before he's like 1 year old, because we're always around a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So I'm just like started to see that, and I want to make sure that it's not something that, you know, is happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely something that we want to get a handle on sooner rather than later. The positive is he's still pretty young right now, so.
Okay, great. Oh my God. Well, yeah, I was watching the YouTube video of Walter the other day, and I was like, holy shit, I can't, he's a totally different dog.
Yeah, I just saw him, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday I went to their house to go work with him. He's such a good boy. I really like that dog.
He's so beautiful. I like love him. But wait, that's awesome then. But yeah, I will. Is text or email best for you?
You just text me right at this number. That's usually the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Okay, awesome. And yeah, I'll talk to my boyfriend and we'll figure out timing as for his surgery and everything. And then we'll definitely be in touch with you.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Walter, look at him. Already paying off.
Yeah, he's got some fans.
Hi, buddy. Benny's owner texted me the other day. Let me read this. This will be good to read while they're playing. She said, this was Monday. Just walked Benny with my friend's dog. He tried several times to engage in play. I'm very happy with his progress. If you have a day this week or next where I could bring him to enrichment, let me know. That was nice. Look at him. All right, so we got a really, really fantastic update yesterday afternoon from the owner of Hank the Rottweiler, which we've been posting a decent amount of videos of, and who sparked a lot of controversy because we implemented a tool called a bonker with him. We got a whole freaking podcast on that you could listen to. But we got an awesome update. So Hank was one of the most reactive dogs we've had in a very long time. And, you know, typically we go through a progression with these dogs where we'll see that they get really good with us in our environment, right? They get really good with the owner with us present. And then the biggest last hurdle is the owner being able to replicate those things on their own, obviously. So we got through those first two stages. She hadn't really done a lot of this yet by herself at home. You know, we just did a follow-up session with her the other day going over how to implement these things at home, how to go for walks, et cetera, et cetera. We got an update just saying Hank had a friend over, can't believe this, and proceeded to send us like a 60-second long video of Hank working in their backyard, which is even bigger hurdle because there's a lot of territorial associations typically associated with home environments, with him maintaining phenomenal engagement on her. Another dog walking past, I mean, literally like 10 feet away from him, which would have obviously set him off before, and he really crushed it and did incredible. Proceeded to talk about how she then took them for a walk through Lakewood Park, which is a very dog populated area, and passed a decent amount of dogs, and only had one very minor reaction when another dog was reacting at him, to which he stopped immediately as soon as she corrected him for it, which is fantastic. So super proud of the progress, just continuing to put this stuff out there because, you know, as owners who struggle with these types of dogs, you're gonna get flack for the type of methods you implement. People are gonna have all sorts of fucking opinions on how to do things, how not to do things, et cetera, et cetera. And the biggest thing I tell everybody is you need to do what works for you. And you know your own dog better than anybody else does, and you know what your own dog needs better than anybody else does. So do the things that empower you, do the things that get you results, and don't listen to the haters. Sure. Which is good, right? So here's the thing. So this is a lot of what I like to get done in these these sessions that I do, these virtual sessions, because most of this kind of stuff are with people like you who have done a decent amount of training up to this point. They have a decent understanding of how to apply some of this kind of stuff, and we're just looking to fine tune things, right? So you've found a lot of success with your pet corrector in suppressing that reactivity out the window, which is incredible, right? Like that's something that takes people a lot of time typically to accomplish. And like you said, you've struggled with it for X amount of time so far, and we're now getting some headway on it. And a lot of people then will hit a point where they'll do what you're doing now, where their no marker starts to become charged, right? It gets some value behind it, right? So when we use it in those moments, once the behavior is instead of over here, it's down here, we'll just say no, and if the dog stops, we don't apply the correction for it, right? Which is understandable because it's better than what it was, but it's still the wrong mentality, because here's the thing, we want to totally eliminate that reactivity. And even though it's went from the total freak out to like I'm staring out and I'm concerned and I'm growling, we want to do away with that last little bit. We don't want to have to say no every time the mailman comes to get her to stop doing the behavior. We want her to just stop doing the behavior, right? So one big black and white rule that we have when it comes to applying a punisher, right? A punisher could be anything. It could be your pet corrector, it could be a pop on your leash, it could be an e-collar correction, it could be any of the above, anything the dog perceives as aversive, right? But anytime we say no for something, we always have to apply that punisher, because the no marker is not the correction. The no marker is simply what attaches the correction to the behavior. And utilizing your pet corrector, for example, let's say, let's say this is my pet corrector here and I have it across the room, right? And, you know, she starts growling out the window at somebody, whatever, right? You could mark with no in that moment, and I fully expect that she's gonna stop when I say no, because she's like, oh shit, like I know what typically comes after this, right? And then you would go, and because you've identified the mistake and essentially taken a picture of that behavior she was doing in that moment, you bought yourself the time to go get your pet corrector, go up to her, give your correction with it, and she'll understand that that correction, even if she's nowhere near the window at that point, is for whatever she was doing when she heard no. And that's essentially how we finish that behavior off, right? That's how we fully suppress the behavior. Then at that point, you would redirect her onto something else if you wanted to. Then at that point, that's where we would start then reinforcing the proper behavior. But what I want to start seeing is that the mailman comes, we don't have a reaction, we don't have a growl, we don't have anything. Then I would start adding positive reinforcement in at that point for the lack of response, right? For the full correct behavior. Yep. Understood. Okay. Well, so here's the thing. When it comes to our commands, their behavior or their compliance is contingent on a reinforcement they care enough about, right? That could be them really wanting the thing that we have for them or wanting to avoid the thing that for not doing it. You know what I mean? So obviously with any of these different commands, we have to go through the process of teaching the command first. And typically that would be the process of the way I've always done it is through leash and positive reinforcement, right? So I shape it with the leash, what's expected. I reinforce when they do it correctly, right? And I start off with my expectation, just does my dog have like basically a 100% understanding of when I say this command, it means to go to this spot, right? And I keep it easy initially, even though like when things are quiet and stuff like that, like even when I have guests come over the house, my dogs will go to it from pretty much anywhere in the room. When there's higher distractions present, I kind of shrink my criteria down to like maybe within like 5 feet of the bed. So like I'll put myself like within 5 feet of that bed, I'll give my command for it and make sure that they go from that distance. So in your training sessions, I would be training for the picture of what you're gonna use in those high distracting situations. So a lot of people make the mistake of, because the dog in a low distracting environment, because they're motivated, they'll go from 10 feet away, 15 feet away, stuff like that. They spend too much time practicing the distance as opposed to the duration, right? So make it as easy as possible for the next couple of weeks here as far as work that command from like 4 feet away from the bed, right? Make sure she's rock solid with when you get like 4 feet next to that bed that she's basically flying onto it on her own, right? We kind of want to see when we go near it that autopilot of before we even say bed or before we even say place that she's just gunning for it, right? The most basic way that you can incorporate the e-collar into your walking and into the general things that you'll need to use it is by just teaching like a baseline understanding that a tap on the e-collar means to move in your direction, right? So basically what I would do is same process. I would go out into an open area, right? It could be a yard, it could be your driveway, it could be wherever. And I would have the level set at a level where the dog cares about it more than the outside distractions, obviously. And you'd probably have to test that a couple times to see what that's gonna be. And what I would do is I would start miscellaneously walking around, and anytime I lost the dog's attention, it would be similar to the 180 drill with the prong collar. You would turn, give a tap on the e-collar, and then say come, right? And you would repeat this process until the dog's attention is like 100% on you, right? Like you can't even turn without them turning with you because they're so focused in, right? And the hardest part about this exercise is making sure that your level is set high enough for those distractions, because you're gonna see it's gonna, especially the first couple times you do this, it's gonna fluctuate so much, right? It's gonna be like suddenly there's no distractions and you're down at like, I don't know, a 10, a 15, and then there's a squirrel over there and you gotta go up to a 50, and then, you know, whatever, a dog's across the street, and then you got to go up to a 70, and then suddenly you got to go back down to a 10, and it's just, it really can be all over the place, and you have to not look at the number so much, and you have to just 100% of the time be dictating it off of how the dog is responding to it. Problems people are having are not understanding how to successfully implement consequences into their training so the dog learns from them. So you just want to make sure, like, as you're adding some of these things in, you're equally adding in an appropriate amount of reinforcement for the correct behavior, you know, just to help make sure you're not creating too much of a negative association. And then once the dog does start getting it, we could really, like I said, pump them up and be like, yes, this is correct. This is what we want you to do, you know? Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of work to do, but you're off to a good start with stuff. And like, even though it sounded like a lot of stuff, like everything I described is really like, we're talking like a couple training sessions worth of things to do, you know? So like I said, if you're having issues with any of it, or it just doesn't seem like it's clicking or something, do like what you did last time, take a video of it and send it to me. And before our next Zoom call, we'll schedule it. I'll shoot you an email once we get off here. Well, before we do the next one, I'll want to see videos of the progress anyways of where you're at with things, so we could critique those things. So, no problem. If you need anything at all, you know how to get a hold of me, and then we'll kind of go from there. All right, Tricia. Yep. The most I've ever talked in my life.